people. There's some more people waiting for you.
What about you, though? They say you're the kind of unofficial leader.
They say that?
That's what they said.
You know, that's what happens if you don't show up to the committee meeting. You know what happens?
Oh, yes.
That's not true.
And it's not all neighbors.
And it's friends and neighbors.
Well, that's the
Here's
thing,
a friend.
Okay, good point, because
It's a much larger
the
thing
NIMBY,
than just...
I'm
yeah.
getting a NIMBY feel,
You are
because
from
everybody's
us?
like right next to it.
No,
No,
it's
no.
not. I'm
Okay.
out on Milestone
Wait,
Road.
wait a
There are a
minute.
lot of
Wait a
people
minute.
here.
Here's not a neighbor. Here's not a neighbor.
Anywhere near
Okay,
here,
yeah,
actually.
that's
Diane Coombs is
Christine
not a
down here's
neighbor.
not a neighbor.
Either Diane.
I'm not.
Paul's.
I'm down Union Street.
This is a much bigger issue than NIMBY.
Well, how many signatures have you gotten to this point?
I think we're just around 1,500. I don't know exactly because there are more every minute, you know?
You're right.
So, you know, and there are lots of places that they are. So I don't know exactly, but at least 1,500.
Did you write the Warren article?
No, I did not.
Okay.
One of our members did.
Now, I heard as of yesterday that the selectmen have rewritten the article,
They have put in their own
article. How do you feel about that? Have you
Fine.
seen it?
Yes.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about that article, or can anyone here?
I don't think, you know, I think the selectmen should do that.
Okay.
Frankly, it's their article, and there's a distinction in there called a port authority that they need to tell you about. I don't, you know, it's their article.
There can be no misinterpretation.
Who came up with that? You?
What you have is a group of neighbors
Yeah. Group of neighbors.
and a group of friends and a group, essentially, you have a group of Nantucketers who are concerned about the creeks, the waterfront, and the last piece of waterfront, of working waterfront on Nantucket.
Okay. How did we get into this situation? Do you know that answer?
I don't know that answer. You know, we're here
I mean,
to
it's
respond
just,
to a situation that showed up, and it's, you know, in order for what's to happen, what's proposed, there's a ton of permits and special permissions and all kinds of things that have to happen. In other words, the community has to acquiesce in this happening. And, you know, that's why we're bringing up the points so we can look at it as a community.
Yes.
And it's not just a neighborhood issue. It's a Nantucket issue. And the more you look at this, the more you understand that. Okay?
And they do own the property, right? Like
They do.
anyone who
they
owns
own a
property.
boatyard.
Okay.
They own a boatyard.
Don't they own the Tuckernuck Inn too?
No, not yet, to my knowledge. I don't
Okay.
think that's happened.
All right.
They own, I think, a house over there, the Ramos house, which was, and they own this parcel and that parcel.
And don't forget the town's triangle.
And then, you know, the town owns part of the land that's right over there.
They don't own any of the harbor bottom. That belongs to everyone in the town.
Right.
All
Okay.
the water.
And not
All the
only
water.
the townspeople, the marine life that lives there and depends on that is a part of their life cycle. So it's all connected. The people, the natural environment affected in the life, the shorebirds, as I mentioned, the horseshoe crabs, the flounder are all going to lose by this.
It's not just the eelgrass, but this is an extremely valuable bird habitat. It's a regular part of the Sunday morning birding group, and if you read my mother's column, there are lots of things that have been seen down here. I think most recently there was a Thayer's gull, but all the shorebirds, sometimes hawks come in after the ducks, and I don't have the list in my mind, and I'm not nearly the bird person that she is, but there's not just one or two species, but dozens of species that specifically need the shallow water and that have been able to coexist with what's here. Some of them are just common birds, some of them are endangered birds, but when you cut into the habitat, you can't. It's like an incremental erosion, and the more you take, the less is left for them. I think there's maybe something in the proposal about restoring eelgrass. Well, I don't know how you can do that. Eelgrass will grow where it can grow, and to try and do any kind of replication projects that is allowed under the state law, but it's very difficult, and it doesn't work very well on Nantucket. When you get something that's taken 10,000 years to get just like this, it's very difficult to replicate it in in an instant.
Over the course of 32 years that I've lived here, I've been on several committees. Several of them have studied the harbor, the drainage of the harbor, the way the tides work in the harbor, and the gas line, and when Mr. Beinecke wanted to bring oil in here. So I've been on the harbor study, one or the other, for a long time. And as talking about what Ginger was talking about before we get into the drainage, the horseshoe crabs is a very endangered species, and they have, federal-wise, they are being protected. This is where they live as young horseshoe crabs, whatever you want to call them, are over in the creeks. And as you can see, the way that is unfrozen out in the harbor right now, coming out of what's called Pest House Channel, is the tide doesn't flush in and flush out. If you have a spill or whatever over here, it doesn't go out in the next tide. It circles around, and it circles around, and then it circles around again. It's a strange tide. If they dredge this, you're going to disturb the whole way that this works. And what's going to make the edge of what he has dredged stay there? It's going to fill in with the next movement of the tide. And it's always going to be too shallow, and they're always going to be working on it. And as Ginger said, you cannot recreate. You ask the Conservation Commission how successful recreation of a wetlands or a eelgrass or whatever is. It doesn't work. Not well at all. The drainage, I was on the Conservation District for 10 years. We worked on this. I have spent 10 years looking. This here?
Yeah.
Which is a storm drain thing, so it didn't flush into the harbor. Right. We have studied every plan going back to people who are no longer active in the town and on the DPW. The drainage coming down from Pleasant Street, Cherry Street, Bear Street, over, coming through the creeks, following the railroad tracks, underneath hatches, and coming down, filtering down through here. And I live on Union Street, the corner of Fayette. I have a sump pump going 365 days of the year, 24 hours a day. The basement is never dry anymore. There used to be the dining room and the kitchen were there. It is no longer. Somebody down the street from us, and this is before we sort of became aware of it, built up their land, built a house on it, created a wall. Sure. So now the half of my property should be considered wetlands because that's what it is. But if you put a building here and any sort of wall, pressure, whatever, you're going to create the same wall, not only reacting down Union Street and stuff, but everywhere around here, because this is filled land. All of that, Union Street down to Washington Street, is all filled land. So you put a wall in here, it's going to go that way. Yeah. And I think a study of the water table reaction, and I have some maps and stuff I can show you, should definitely be looked at.
The beauty of this spot, first of all, is there's no place like it. And to be able to wander out here, it's like going back into the past. That's all romantic and artistic, and big money thinks nothing of things like that. They just brush it aside, and that's a tragedy in itself. But right up there where Union Street, the little two-way street, turns into Francis Street, it just barely works because everyone has to stop coming around here in the morning, coming to Union Street. When you get to when you come down Washington Street and you get to Union Street, in that little space in between, if there's a truck turning, everyone has to stop. Well, I've seen it backed up in the mornings, and I know the way to get around it, knowing the back roads, but the other people don't. And it can be held up for literally close to an hour and coming in the same way. And if this traffic, 400 cars, plus their guests and their children, trying to come in and out of an event is just not going to work. There's no way to widen the road. There's no other road they can put in. There's nothing they can do except to put stoplights or streetlights in or something. It's just physically not going to work. Simple as that.
I'd like to echo Mr. Longnecker in just commenting that it's a very special place, and I think it's totally endangered by what they're proposing. The character of the harbor and the beauty of it are just absolutely in grave danger here. Like when we come around the point on the boat coming home to Nantucket, we're going to be blinded by like the glaring white of these huge hulls of mega yachts that are going to be there. And you know, you almost wonder why they have to have it by the water, since so much of it is about fine dining and spa treatments and whatnot. I guess I'm just fundamentally opposed to the whole ideology behind it, of the whole, you know, exclusive nature of the club, and just the idea that someone could buy a place and destroy it and take it away from everyone.
I can't imagine it becoming the way these people are talking about what they're going to do with it, that it's going to be better than it is right now. And I think if people could only look into the future and think about this being the last available waterfront property where anybody can do any kind of a marine business. And Nantucket is, we're out here in the middle of the ocean, and there are people with boats here. If we get a bad storm, and they have to truck boats over to Arrowwood Drive, there's no way they're going to get everybody out.
You've got a big stay. You're right across the street.
Yep, we're going to be surrounded by yacht club if this gets approved. My main problem...
Well, won't that be good for business? Now, come on.
Somewhat, but if you have no place to park, you're going to be drived out like Glidden's was downtown.
All right.
Nobody wants to drive around for a half hour looking for a parking spot to go inside for 5 minutes and buy a piece of fish.
Okay.
But I'm not totally against having a yacht club if it was built around a boatyard. But what they have right now is just a hauling spot basically for a boat. I have some pictures with me that I took right before Hurricane Isabel.
Yeah.
It's probably about 30 sailboats and a countless number of motorboats.
Okay, hold go slow.
Now, if this was not on-site boat storage anymore, every one of these sailboats would have to be totally de-rigged to be hauled out of town to a boat storage area. These boats were here 1 week and they were gone right after the storm went. They launched them all back in the water. So they had all the sailboats on one side of the street and motorboats on the other. But these are all crammed in there. Now imagine every one of these boats going non-stop for a week before a hurricane. Add that to additional traffic from the yacht club, and there's going to be a disaster.
I watched your show last night on television, where you came to the boatyard and interviewed Mike Allen.
Yes.
And frankly, I had never seen the inside of his operation. And you went through all the buildings, all the shops. You talked to the 8 employees that he has working there, or some of them that he's got working there year-round. And what struck me when I was watching the show is how heartbreaking it's going to be if those businesses and those folks and that whole sort of physical plant is gone from that place. It seemed to be where those people needed to work, right here at the waterfront. And I noticed there were a lot of shops in the buildings that looked like they were kind of underutilized. And I feel like that if those buildings could stay there and they could become the home of a lot of marine-related businesses like Mike's, that could provide jobs for year-round people right here on the waterfront that are relating to the waterfront, it would be an incredible benefit for the community.
How you doing?
Did you come down specially for this, Kenny? You're going to show me.
I'm going to show you your house. You used to live up the road here.
Yeah, I used to live up there. That's right. You remember me? Sure.
All right, Gino. We got, what we have here is this harbor. It's this little anchorage area here.
Yeah.
It depends. This anchorage relies on this channel to be open, because everybody that parks in this area goes by my raft that's sitting there with it tipped up a little bit there, and it goes right out that way and heads right for the northeast direction.
Right.
Now everybody sails in here, powers in here, and picks up the family from the beach, family from anywhere. Always, they rely on that channel to come up into this little anchorage.
Right.
And this little anchorage, you know, they said it wasn't going to displace too many moorings. If you go down in the right lower corner, you can see all the moorings that are in that corner. If you run your pier out there around my raft, around my boat, and up this way, you are actually locking this whole anchorage, you know, in such a way that you cannot access this channel anymore to get out. It's like taking Main Street away from us.
Right.
You know, you might as well go from Caton Circle to the High Line and just put two fences down each side and say, if you want to get across the street, that's your, you know, tough luck. But we had the same situation happen with the pipeline. The pipeline was coming in, and we actually had the pipeline shortened up a little bit, just so that we could keep that access open to the channel. Years ago, about 15, 16 years ago, the Airport Commission. So we had got together with them and did the same thing, you know, so they couldn't block the channel. Now we're back 15, 16 years ago looking to block the channel up again. That's a biggie on that. I feel that it's affecting a lot of moorings, more than just a couple of displacement moorings. Okay?
Yep.
Well, my feelings are Nantucket's a very special place, and it just seems that in recent years everybody's been taking advantage of the natural resources and not necessarily giving back. But this resource is one which, if it does go away as a boatyard, I think is critical. We're an island 30 miles at sea, and to give up this resource and turn it into a fancy private club, I think can be rather dangerous for the entire community. And a lot of people maybe are not paying attention to the fact that this is the only last piece of working waterfront that we have. And to put a restaurant here and to put a yacht club here, as they call it, I really feel it's a private marina and a restaurant. At this point in time, to have a restaurant down here, 300-seat restaurant, seems a little ridiculous. It's an inappropriate place for it. And any yacht club I've ever been associated with in the past always uses moorings. So the idea of putting 80 or 90 slips or even cutting it back to 50 slips seems to be a real burden on the ecosystem here. So all of that said, everybody has an opinion, but it seems that at this point in time, the spin masters are continually spinning this and saying it's a yacht club, but it's really a private restaurant, a private marina. And unfortunately, I think it is a public trust area here, which the entire community has to come together and decide what they want done. It seems that this developer is continually overreaching. That may be all part of the plan to scale back and do what they really want to do. But closing this off to the community, I think, will be a great disservice.
Thank you.
The whole thing, this says much of it, but it's about getting involved. It's about getting the whole island involved. If you have a decision, yes or no, it doesn't really matter. But if you don't know what's going on here, go to www.saveourwaterfront.org. There you can find out all the information you may need to know. This is an important issue. It's about Nantucket as we know it now. We don't know what it would be later. Thanks.
Okay.
That's it.
I think we got a nice little piece there.
You happy?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Did we deliver?
You do, well, that remains to be seen.